Hello. And weekly Wednesday live time. First, a quick shout out to Simon Pellet from Music on Your Own Terms podcast. Thank you, Simon, for having me as your guest in your show a while back. That episode is now out, and you guys, our show viewers, you can find it on all the most common podcast platforms. Music on Your Own Terms podcast. Go check it out. I just read what Simon wrote as an introduction, and he writes, "It is with great pleasure and gratitude that I present my conversation with Mr. Juha Ruokangas of Ruokangas Guitars, Finnish luthier, innovator, and life coach." Life coach, man, I've never thought of that. Thank you, much appreciated. So guys, if my weekly Wednesday streams aren't enough life coaching for you, there's more of the same mumbo jumbo now available on Music on Your Own Terms podcast by Simon Pellet. So, all right, welcome all. Happy to be here with you today, my fellow time travelers. Okay, my guest is getting anxious in the green room, but hang on there. First, a little story for you. Let's rewind back in time to the summer of 2016. I think it was 2016, could be 15, but anyways, one day, a longtime customer, a friend of mine, Saku Mattila, a Finnish professional guitarist, came by to a shop to do some maintenance work for his guitars, and he mentioned about a new band he was involved in, prog rock. Okay, and that's where he got my full attention. They were about to play their first ever gig in Helsinki at a small venue that I always keep forgetting the name of that venue. Maybe my guest will remember it later on. A venue kind of as small as they come. And Saku invited me to see the band. And I recall the name of the band might have been different on that very first gig. Not 100% sure, but anyways, the band was just pure dynamite. Like, totally mind-blowing. I have a photo. I think this is from... let me show you guys. Where do I have that photo? Here. Yeah. I think this is from their second gig. The venue, the lineup, all was the same, but if the name was different on the first gig, by now it had already changed to this Wheel. Pure dynamite. I became a huge fan, and that is actually an understatement. You know, as a teenager, like I know you guys, many of you have the same experience. I used to be such a devoted fan of the bands I listened to, and when getting older, it's not that easy to have, that kind of powerful, mind-blowing experience of a band. Well, Wheel managed to do it for me. And, they took me back at being a teenage fanboy all the way. Absolutely thrilling. And the fact that their original guitarist, Saku, was playing our guitar, Ruokangas guitar, was very nice, but that was purely coincidental, With our guitar, any guitar, I would have become a huge fan all the same. And after that first gig, I also had the privilege being, Saku's VIP and all. I had the privilege to meet the vocalist, guitarist, songwriter, lyricist, mastermind of the band Wheel, a man who will pop onto the screen right now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. James Lascelles to the broadcast. Hey James, how you doing? Just a second. Actually, you're still muted. Sorry. Now you're on. Repeat what you just said.
What about now? Are we good?
Now you're good. Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me on the podcast, and thank you for your kind words about our early gigs. I have some very fond memories of those.
Yeah. And to the future watchers, like people who are watching this in like 2030 or something, this broadcast is a live recording from 2021, the second year of a COVID-19 pandemic. What crazy, challenging, mind-boggling, and sad, surreal, and also maybe eye-opening in certain ways time it has been. James, Wheel has released its second album just a couple of weeks ago. And, when I'm listening to the album, Resident Human, which I'm totally in love with, by the way, I'm hearing I'm feeling the time we live in your music in a very profound way. Now, am I like imagining that?
No, I think you're completely right. I think it's really in the fabric of what the album became. We started tracking the bass and drums for it literally just after the first wave of um, of COVID here in Finland, and it was
Yeah.
pretty surreal, not knowing how many days we could actually track, or if we were going to have to cancel everything in the middle. We were socially distancing in the studio. People were coming in to wipe the mixing desk every kind of a few hours. It was really, really odd. So, it was kind of cathartic to have something to focus on during the pandemic, but it was always in our peripheral vision, and it was impossible to shake. And lyrically as well, I think just having more time to invest in this and pull back and really dig deep, and address, I think, some of the fundamentals that are about being alive right now,
Yeah.
absolutely became part of the album's identity.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing. I mean, it's such a dark album, heavy album, dark album, and kind of like gloomy in ways that I think the previous album, which is, I mean, that's also heavy and dark, but this one, the new one, I think it's a more Resident Human, to me. It's a more difficult album than the previous one. It's the more difficult in terms that, I don't know, been listening to it so many times now, and every time I listen to it, it just grows and grows and grows. And
It's lovely to hear that you're
yeah,
getting to that.
yeah, and I think it's just it's to me it's just it is I've told it to you before, but I'm telling it to the watchers now, to the listeners of the podcast, that it's really a masterpiece, and nothing short of a masterpiece. It's an absolute wonderful piece of music. Now, what I've seen online, reviews, I've just looked up a little bit something what's going on. It appears that the new album has been extremely well received, and I don't know. I have listened to it more than 20 times since the release, and there's this one song, one tune that has been playing in my head now for a week, 24/7. It's there when I go to sleep, and it's still there when I wake up. Guess which one? Can you think
Off
of
the
which?
top of my head, I'm going to go with the first one.
That's not the one. I'll give you a hint. The title, a word with double meaning.
Oh, okay, so it's Fugue.
It's Fugue. Yes. Fugue. Yes, Fugue it is. That hypnotic. I mean, this is a song. This is one of those songs that on the first listen it wasn't like that, but it's been It's just, to me, like it's a magical piece of music, and that hypnotic guitar melody, that riff, whatever you call it, and those ghostly echoing vocal chants. I don't know what they are, how you did it, but I hear on the background there something. It's just it's like, I get the chills down my spine now even talking about the music, and it's driving me insane because I'm just hearing it 24/7 all the time. And talking about insanity, the word fugue, it has indeed two meanings in music. People, fugue is a contrapuntal composition in which a short melody or phrase is introduced by one part and successively taken up by others, developed by interweaving the parts. That sounds very much like prog rock to me. And however, in psychiatry, fugue is a state or period of loss of awareness of one's identity, often coupled with flight from one's usual environment, associated with certain forms of hysteria and epilepsy. Well, that's what I'm going through listening to your song. the psychiatric part of it. Can you tell us the story of this? The song, is there a story to this song? How did this? Where did you find this song from? Where did it come from?
There's absolutely a story, and no one is more surprised by Fugue being what it is than we are. I wrote that song 2 days before we hit the studio to track drums and bass, which really pissed off Aki and Sundari, who had very, very little time to prepare and to put the things together. So they kind of said, yeah, if we've got time after we've recorded the other songs, we'll look at it. But otherwise, we might have to leave it, just because we had a very kind of a tight timetable to get all the drums and bass done.
Okay.
And the drum beat I'd originally written was super busy. The bass that stayed the same. That was kind of the building block of the whole track, was this more kind of, I guess, harmonic bass line.
Yeah.
Something a little less drum-like than the other tracks.
Yeah.
And originally, the working title was Skeletons 2. So for anyone familiar with our music, Skeletons on Moving Backwards is an instrumental track. And it's supposed to just be like a placeholder between these two other songs to kind of give you a break and a chance to reset. And it was actually somebody's idea that we should look at doing something in between a full vocal track and an instrumental, which I think is kind of how it ended up. And lyrically, it's based on a third meaning of fugue, which I discovered in a book called Hyperion Cantos, where it's talking about cryogenic fugue being a means to travel between the stars and putting humans into a state of suspended animation. And kind of almost ironically, I was thinking just how many of us would have chosen to do that for the past 12 months as a way to escape the COVID restrictions. Just hopefully wait until it's all over. And even despite the risks of this form of travel, I think many of us would have chosen it. So after all of this, we finished the track, and our management suggested using it as a single. And everyone else in the band was up for it. I'll admit I was the one saying, "Are you sure? Do you think people want to hear this?"
Right.
And at the moment, it's at least in the last month, it's got the most plays of any of our songs on all the streaming platforms. So I'm really pleasantly surprised how well received it's been.
Right. Okay. 'Cause I didn't know that. I mean, I haven't looked at any statistics like that. What's going on, but it's just, well, I can't. I mean, well, I told you when you visited our shop just very recently. I told you that we're renovating our apartment in the other end of this building, and when I put my my building construction hat on and pull the gloves on, and that's what I've been doing. I've been listening nonstop, The Resident Human, and yeah, the whole album has grown, and this one tune is just something that I feel it's up there at the, I don't know, I'm a huge music lover, but this is somewhere right now, it's right there at the very top. Like, if I would need to choose, like, I don't know, top 5 tunes ever, I mean, probably I would put Fugue there. It's just a brilliant piece of music. I love it. Okay.
Really, thank you.
Dave, we'll dive a notch deeper. So we met 5-6 years ago, whatever, and since then, well, now it's become clear. I've been listening to your music. I read, I listen to your lyrics. Well, I don't yet have the physical copy of the new, because what I love to do is that I'm just listening to music. So I sit down with the album cover, and if you have the lyrics printed on I don't know if you have the lyrics on it, but if they are there, I listen to your lyrics. I try to follow them. I try to understand them. At the same time, when I've kind of learned to know that side of you, who you are as a music, or what music comes out of you, I have also had the privilege to get to know you a little bit as a person, a human resident.
Well, back at you.
Yeah. So, it's like 2 different layers of knowing you, 2 parallel realities to me of knowing you. And now, based on this, the way, this is just the way I function, the way I kind of think of things, and I dug up this definition of a certain type of personality that I have a feeling you might be this kind of a person. Are you ready to hear your personality definition?
Well, I've heard you're a kind of life coach, so please fire away. Yeah,
okay, so here goes. A person with the introverted, observant, thinking, and prospecting personality traits. They tend to have an individualistic mindset, pursuing goals without needing much external connection. They engage in life with inquisitiveness and personal skill, varying their approach as needed. How does that fit to you, how you see yourself? I'm totally off track here.
I think the only word which was wrong was I don't think I've ever been called introverted, so I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
But I think as I've got older, definitely I've become more introverted than I was when I was young, and I think I've taken, especially on this album, much more time for kind of personal reflection. And earlier on, when you were talking about the darkness of the album, this time around, I was really trying to juxtapose that with kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, and got kind of some peace and some maybe something to hang on to through these dark times. And I think especially these longer songs, that they're all exploring personal growth topics in various ways. The first track's talking about coming to terms with the seemingly hostile but ultimately indifferent universe we inhabit.
Yeah.
And just every time our understanding as a species increases and we kind of zoom out on our perspective of this cosmic reality we exist within, I think we feel a little bit smaller and a little bit more maybe worthless and unimportant. And I think nihilism for many people is the outcome there. And I just started thinking, is that the only outcome? And I don't believe it is. I think once we let go of that, there's kind of a payoff as well. We're free of any kind of cosmic responsibility, and just to find our own significance in the now and in the present. And I think especially last year, when so many of us lost our normal and we had to find a new one, it really helps with kind of trying to process that and just to accept, I think, a little bit more the way things really are, and anything good that ever happens to us, all the relationships we have take on this much greater significance, I think, when examined through that lens. I think Hyperion does the same thing, and it has a very similar conclusion regarding our mortality, and especially just how we always look at mortality as a solo game. You know, we always perceive it through only our own suffering, our own perception of time. And I think we're so disconnected from the fact that everyone else we interact with is going through exactly the same existential crises that we are.
Exactly.
And that's what it's talking about in the chorus, you know, this notion that we'll flip off the sinking sun together and hopefully united face our inevitable oblivion. And it sounds negative. I think there's something wonderfully peaceful about that when we can't change it. Every person that has ever lived is staring down the barrel of this gun that could go off at any time. And I think once we let go and we just accept it and we try and focus on the time we have and however long it is, I think the notion of goodness and the good things that happen to us take on this much greater significance and meaning. And it sounds almost like I'm preaching at this point. And just to be really clear, this is something I manage to do on a daily basis. I have days where this all clicks and it makes sense. I have other days where I forget it and I get just as annoyed about the mundane as I used to. But especially because we keep looking outwards with most of our lyrics and exploring these political or sociological things going on in the world around us, I think there's got to be some peace as well. I think all of us deserve peace. And trying to find that has been a big part, at least for me as the lyricist, of making this album.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. Well, okay. Given the fact that well, you recognize some things, not the introverted part, but otherwise maybe close. There's a name to this type of character. This it's called, this personality that I told you the definition. It's called a virtuoso personality. Now, do you, James, do you see yourself as a virtuoso?
I'd say the straight opposite. I think at least I've always been watching the kind of meta of putting the songs together, but I'm a rhythm guy, you know.
Yeah.
I've had the privilege of playing with lots of people I would call virtuosos, people like Suckle, who you mentioned, who's an insane guitar player, and Ronnie, who replaced him, and our current guitarist, Jussi Toronen. But I've just always been more interested, I think, in the groove and the dynamics of the overall track and sound design. But it's great you think I'm a virtuoso, so I'll take it.
Well, it's you know, jumping back, or like talking about virtuoso, talking about the concept of virtuosity. It is a word often connected, like you said, it's, you know, to great skills in music or some other art form that, you know, really something like that. But it has also another level, or another type of perspective to look at it, especially if you don't maybe talk about being a virtuoso, but talking about what is virtuosity. You know, it's a word describing a state. Like, to me, the way I've read a couple of books that talk about these personalities, talk about well, I guess it would be something to do with my personal trait as I just can't kind of get past I have this constant urge to understand better what's going on. So some kind of like a search of meaning of life, in a way, search of something. Like you were talking, I mean, it's kind of talking about the same thing, and about the big perspective, and then going to the macroscopic and looking at our individual lives, and talking about virtuosity. It's to me, you know, it's more describing a state of mind rather than praising someone's magical skills. Like, one can be like thinking of it like being fortunate enough to get to have the privilege to drink from the fountain of virtuosity, meaning the journey and not the destination. More like a selfless meditative state of being, almost like all energy focusing into the task at hand, whether it's making music, whether it's making a guitar, whether it's whatever you're making or doing. In other words, I don't think of myself but the task. So I'm not selfishly going somewhere, and perhaps load of mumbo jumbo to some, but I find this quite fascinating, because it's like, to me, that, you know, phrasing it like drinking from the fountain of virtuosity, it's almost like observing the source or the portal where the creativity, where the music comes from, within us, sure, but not if one doesn't find that portal first, you know. Does it make any sense to you?
It does, and I've revised my opinion. I think maybe you're right. I just had a little Google just to see there are two definitions to virtuoso, and I
Yeah,
actually wasn't aware of the second one, so I've learned something today. And it says that one, like we said, is the person very skilled in
yeah,
music or an artistic pursuit. Then there's also a person with a special knowledge or interest in works of art, which
yeah,
absolutely ties in with what you said, just constantly digging and trying to find these deeper layers of meaning. And absolutely, that's been a lifelong thing. I've always thought just personal growth and music are intertwined as well. And this notion that how terrible would it be if where we are now would be the pinnacle of who we could ever be, and all we could ever
yeah,
know. And I think it's just part that if there's a meaning to life, I think it's that. It's just constantly refining the theory and hopefully understanding things better. And
yeah,
I think you're totally right. That ties into guitar making and to writing music.
yeah. Those are just kind of those are tools, but and different ways to approach the same thing. Um, yeah. Well, listen, like I said, I'm just a fanboy here, having the time of my life, um, interviewing one of my musical heroes of the modern times, which is really rare. I have to say that. I mean, I'm well, I'm soon 50 years old, and life turns to be often for us human residents of this planet. You know, it kind of turns. You start looking to the rear view mirror, and you start looking to the nostalgic stuff more and more, and kind of finding your inspiration from the stuff that used to be. And it's not so common to find musical inspiration in the modern time. For me, at least, it isn't so. So I'm very excited about that. Well, let me see.
Really, the back at you with the gear. I mean, as a left-handed guitarist, I've always had fairly low expectations with finding instruments that really speak to me. But I still remember, I mean, Suckle said to me the first time we met, "Be careful, you're going to end up buying one of these." And he was totally right.
Okay.
I think we came up together to your factory assembly room, the whole Ruokangas kind of estate. And I remember you just happens to have a left-handed. I think it was a Mojo on the wall.
Yeah, that's right.
And he said, "Yeah, just give that a try, see what you think." And the damage was done instantly. I fell in love with it. And I've seen lots of kind of these custom-made, highly skilled luthier instruments, and what you're doing is absolutely insane. I think it's kind of a. I mean, I've been playing Les Paul guitar since I was a kid, and my parents bought me a Gibson Les Paul when I was 15 years old, and I always knew this is what I want to play. And it's a Les Paul standard, and it sounds good. It sounds like a Les Paul, but it's modern. I kind of never thought I'd even try going for something vintage or custom, because I just thought it was, that's for real guitarists. That's not for me. It was my perception when I was younger. And when we started talking about it together a few years ago about something that would really, really fit me, I think slowly I started to come around to the idea that I'm not looking, I'm not aiming high enough. And I think what you've managed to do with both of the guitars you've made for me, it's absolutely blown every expectation I had out of the water. And I've got a whole newfound appreciation for just what you can do with an instrument. It's improved my playing, it's improved my writing, and just sincerely thank you for everything you've done, because I never would have thought I'd be a guy playing something of this quality, and I don't think that would likely have happened if we hadn't met. So thank you.
Well, James, thank you, and you're welcome. And it's a two-way street, and for me, it's a privilege. It's like a, at the end of the day, it's like we're tool makers, really. We're like in a very old-fashioned way, we're tool makers, and well, people, that was first of all, that was some serious Ruokangas guitar advertisement for you. Don't listen to this man. He's all fugue. He's very confused both musically and psychologically. So don't listen to this man. No, okay. Thank you, James, for the compliments. But it is that's what we are. We're tool makers, and of course there are different kinds of guitarists. Others have a lot of guitars. They love to collect guitars. They play a lot of different guitars, but to some players, I feel that the guitar, the main guitar, whatever, it can be a very very personal, like an intimate object or item, that it becomes more like an extension of you rather than if you succeed, if that relationship succeeds and it works out. A musical, I mean, that's what it's a musical instrument. It's an instrument to communicate something and to communicate with, and that is, I mean, for us, that's what I've been striving for all these years, is to find. It's not just one. There is no like a textbook solution for it. It's more like you need to understand the player and how can we find that something for this player. I think, and an interesting thing is that 25 years plus in the business, making guitars professionally, I noticed that like more and more it's not black and white, and it's not. No matter which way I try to explain it, it's like falling short. But I feel that the way I am, if I describe myself, I'm a pretty sensitive person who I listen and I watch and I observe and I try to understand. That's what I am. That's who I am. I would write about it. I talk about it, and I somehow, maybe it just has started to radiate from me in such way that communicates to certain type of that communicates to people with the same wavelength that can then feel that they can connect with that. And there is certain sensitivity in a lot of players who love our guitars the most, because that sensitivity somehow goes into the instruments as well. That is part of me, and the type of instruments we make, because it's like you can find these instruments are not great instruments for everybody. Not everybody loves these instruments. These to some players, our guitar, I know it. To some players, our guitars can be frightening instruments, and this is not a critic, or like I'm not positioning it like these are better and other guitars are worse, but it's just these are. I'm thankful that these seem to be good instruments for certain type of players, but they're definitely not for everyone. I know that some players feel that this is just totally not, and they'd rather go with something totally else, which is good. I mean,
I think, based on my experience, at least with your guitars, I think I was playing acoustic for a long time, like before Wheel. I was supporting myself doing solo gigs in bars, playing covers, and I was playing with a guy who won Idols and doing all this kind of but more poppy and folky stuff. So I've been used to a guitar with quite a big dynamic range where you can play it really softly and you can really smash it too. And I think that was one of the first things that struck me about your instruments is like electronically and physically, they really play more like an acoustic. They've got a wider dynamic range. So I think that felt kind of just very natural to me, because that's the world I knew well. And as a professional musician, that's mainly what I've been doing in my life. So it kind of eased that transition. And I guess some other guitars deliberately try to do the opposite, where they try and kind of flatten. I think especially if you think about certain styles of modern metal playing, like I can see why that's a choice that would fit, some kinds of music. But at least for the stuff I want to make, I love the fact that there's such a difference in how touching the string responds on your guitars. And taking on, trying to reinvent the Les Paul. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name.
You're allowed to say. You're allowed to say it. I'm not. You are.
No, okay. But that's not an easy thing to take on, because I mean it's a really iconic guitar and it's a really iconic sound. And you're growing up, I was listening to Thin Lizzy and Peter Green and these other people, and I think Strats sound great, but it was always the Les Paul tracks that really spoke to me. And having something in my hands where I'm able to just effortlessly dial in those kind of sounds is just absolutely spectacular.
Well, just kind of pinpoint one thing you said about you having the acoustic guitar background, and then coming from that direction, and the way you found some kind of that, like a wider dynamic range. That's something that that I guess, I mean, I could take it as a compliment, or I could take it in whatever way, but I just take it as an observation that I'm not surprised about, because I know it's there and I know why it's there, and it's because of the materials, and it's because a lot of things that we've put to the guitars deliberately, making them that way. And well, this is the thing where it becomes very true that not even, I would say, looking at whatever is an average guitar player, there is no such thing. There is not average guitar player, but let's say the majority of electric guitarists don't necessarily look that from the electric guitar. That wider dynamic range, or I mean, there's a good number of such players. But it is really also not only in modern metal music, but also you could say the same of blues music. That there's like, you know, old school blues. It sounds in a certain way. You look for certain ways of tone and sounds and whatever, and the way our guitars are kind of, you can hear every note more. You can there's a certain high fidelity in them, easily, like an element of high fidelity that I hope not in a sterile, cold hospital kind of ways, high fidelity, but rather like in a pleasant way. If you're looking for that in a pleasant way, high fidelity that you can actually, the way I've kind of phrased it often is like, you know, because it's often about like, guitars are often like, I'm the same. I mean, I love the to meddle with the pedals and the amplifiers and the whole signal chain and play with that whole thing. And then, you know, then we look at different elements that I gotta get this part, this, when I get this element to my tone, this little whatever it is, like when I get this one, it will, that's it. I mean, that's gonna be the holy grail of my sound, whatever. And the way I always try to look at it is like a transparency that
that's a much better word.
You know that I feel that I have succeeded when the player, you know, would get the feeling that he's not listening to the amplifier, or he's not hearing the amplifier, he's not hearing the pedal, he's not hearing the chord, he's not hearing the pickup of the guitar, he's not hearing the guitar. He can feel that it's me, you know, that's me, my music, and that everything between me and my music, all that is just goes away, you know, that kind of transparency. You know,
I think that's a much better words. And I think the irony is, if you add gain to the signal chain, every time you add it, it compresses it naturally anyway. So it's especially playing high gain stuff, which I would think those are probably the main guitarists who are really thinking, I don't want dynamic range, I want this to be really flat.
Yeah,
you just add more gain. You can add gain staging, or you can just turn the gain up, and that's the result you get. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's transparency. What I do with my hands, I communicate through my gear in a way which I was able to do with guitars beforehand. I just had to try harder. I think I just completely let go of that stuff with the Ruokangas guitars, and like you said, I like playing a range of guitars, and there are other instruments. Sometimes when I'm recording, there's one really specific sound for 8 bars I want to get. But what's so great about the instruments you've made for me is it does basically all of that, and so simply. Like the first guitar you made for me, the Black Unicorn that I've been touring with all around Europe. It's basically it's a really, really simple instrument. It's got one volume, one tone. Other than that, it's 2 humbuckers with a selector switch.
Yeah.
And a lot of it I'm singing, and I've got a lot of pedals as well that I'm trying to operate all at the same time. So I love the simplicity because I'm doing volume swells and I'm adjusting the tone fairly often during the set, and it's just effortless. What I do with my hands and what I want in my minds to come out through the gear, it's so easy to get those kind of results with a guitar that good. And the one you just made for me, which I actually picked up under a week ago, and I'm still trying to get my head around, has a pretty interesting piece of tech in it called a sustainiac. And I've been using EBOs a lot, like throughout my time in Wheel, and I actually got inspired by Ed O'Brien talking about this on that pedal show, which I'm sure some of the people watching this would have seen. And he was doing some demonstrations about how he does some of the sound design in Radiohead, and I didn't realize that they actually do all of that live, and all the effects processing is done in real time. And so I just got excited at the prospect of, especially in Wheel, as we've got two guitarists, just having maybe some different kinds of sound processing tools available to us on stage, because I don't know how many people know this, but we've toured with a lot of bands, and nearly all of them are using amp modeling software live. Like very few people are taking amps on the road anymore, and I guess we're old-fashioned because we still are, and we're really passionate about using analog amplifiers on stage, and having this noisy thing that's going to annoy the sound tech at the gig. And
I like
especially
that.
All these, so do I. And I understand why some people choose not to as well. There's something practical about it, there's something about control, but I really like having an amp on stage, and I think that's something we're going to continue doing. But having the whole signal chain, and especially since I got the Ruokangas. So before I was playing a PRS Custom 22,
which is a great guitar.
Actually,
I've done some maintenance work for that guitar. It's a great guitar, great instrument.
It is. I've just gone off the pickups. It sounds like a PRS, and that's really, really good sound. It just isn't the sound. I think it's not really speaking to me anymore in the same way. And I think last time we met, I was just talking with you about replacing it with some really decent single coils, because at the moment I'm spoiled for choice with really great humbuckers. I've got your Ruokangas you made for me. I've got the latest one with the Sustainiac and the same humbucker in the bridge, and I've got my Les Paul, so that's all covered.
The gold top.
And just
the gold top.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to get some more life out of the PRS, I've been thinking about putting some single coils in there, which I still think I might do.
I think it's a good idea. And with the single,
I think
sorry. Go ahead.
No bothers. Off to you.
No. Just thinking that that the way you talk about, like you said here when we talked about that, you never use compressor when you play, which is kind of like, given the type of music still with the heavy riffing and all that, like the modern way for that style of music would be quite different, I feel. Which again talks a lot about your control of with playing with guitar, and your sort of your skill to be able to play that stuff without compression. I think it's and thinking of that with a single coil, which is another notch to more dynamics. I think it's definitely worthy an idea to try for you. Yeah,
I think I'm just curious, and that's the main reason I want to give it a try. And who knows, maybe it will be a terrible idea and I'll change my mind down the line. But I think one of the things we learned making Resident Human is creativity is having the freedom to fail. And I'm sure, like you must have found when you were trying to design all the models that you guys have come up with, I mean, it takes a lot of failure to come up with something that's really good that you think is worth sharing with people.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the first time you just knocked it out of the park.
Well, you can't see it because I have the headphones, but my ears are all red because all these compliments about our guitars, and I think that's enough of it. And I repeat what I said earlier: don't believe this man. He's all confused. He's all fugue, whatever it means.
I don't know.
Yeah. So for the next album, I'll have you write a song that will put people to hypnosis, and they'll all, all end up ordering guitars from us. There you see. You actually have to stop. People, you have to stop listening to Wheel's music immediately. It's hypnotic and it will make you lose all control. So stop listening to that. Especially the next album. No, just kidding. Those of you who haven't already gotten to know Wheel's music, there's the link in the description of this video on the YouTube. If you're listening to this as a podcast, dig up Wheel from the streaming services first. And after you've fallen in love, which will happen, I guarantee, buy their album. No, look into my eyes, buy all their released music. 2 EPs, 2 full albums. Buy all that stuff. Because that's what you do to support musicians, support their work. That's what you're supposed to. That's what you're supposed to do, people. So do it. All right. I think it's time to wrap up. Time goes so fast. James, it's really been a pleasure.
Back at you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, James. It's really been a pleasure. And let's put out some serious magic spells and conjurings so the summer will bring back live music to our lives. Okay?
Absolutely. I'm really hoping for the same.
Yeah. To all of our lives, and I can't wait to see Wheel on stage again whenever it's possible, hopefully soon. I can't say.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
Yeah, I can't say I've seen like some of the very devoted fans of bands do, that they tour with them, which I would love to do, but I feel very privileged and honored and special about the fact that I was at your first gig where there was only a handful of people, witnessing, and already then kind of knew that if this doesn't work out, then nothing will. I mean, this is just so awesome that it has to grow big. And then a couple of years later, what was that place where you headlined for the release gig for the Moving Backwards album?
That was On the Rocks in Helsinki.
On the Rocks, yes. And witnessing that, and man, just I felt it in my heart that, oh yeah, this is great. And Saku, who wasn't in the band anymore at that time, he was there watching that gig as well, and we had a chat with Saku, and he was so proud of you guys as well. It's just fantastic. And this is just the beginning.
Yeah, it's been great.
This is just the beginning for you.
I think it is. Yeah, and I think like you, we've come a long way. So who knows what's next? I'm excited to see.
Thank you, and so thank you, people, for joining in. People are talking about stream connection is really bad at my end. I'll have to watch this when it's been uploaded later. I hope it hasn't been bad for everybody. I have a recording. In any ways, this is a recording, and if the stream that goes on YouTube turns out to be very bad, we're gonna replace that file with the recorded file, which is perfect in quality, and also the podcast version that will be on all the podcast, wherever, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever. That's gonna go out also, the recording, with better quality. So anyways,
I've got to admit, I didn't even realise there was a chat until now. I know you mentioned it earlier. I'm looking through, and someone's gone for a pun, which should be arrestable. Someone said it was very confusing, which is that person definitely has children. That's a dad level joke. Absolutely awful.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I've been so focused on what James has been talking about that I haven't been able to follow the chat very much this time. But I will definitely scan through your comments and thank you for being here with us. And guys, it's been only a couple of weeks since my comeback to do the weekly Wednesday streams, but next Wednesday will be offline again. Why? Well, as much as I love you all, next Wednesday happens to be my wife's big birthday. Yes, Emma turns 30 years old. Could be 40. No, I think it must be 30. So my next my next Wednesday is dedicated to Emma. Priorities, people. See, I can't be on two places at the same time. Can't be on YouTube and with my wife. So that's next Wednesday for me. Instead of watching this, you can all send through social media channels your congratulations to Emma, who is the backbone and spine of our company, because without her, I would just deflate and drop on the floor, I think. So thank you, people, for all your support. Thank you, James. It's been a blast.
Back at you. Thanks for having me. It's been really great.
So people, see you next time. Peace, love, and good music.